arrest?
Mr. Rahami is currently under arrest in the city of Linden. It occurred on Elizabeth Avenue in the city of Linden, and one police officer in the city of Linden was shot in the vest and one was shot in the hand. Mr. Rahami also sustained shots, and an ambulance has taken him away.
Had they been chasing him?
I don't know the details. I just know the end result at this time.
Are they characterizing it as a shootout between the two?
I don't know. I don't have any details. I don't even know the hospital. I would.
If that is the case, then what is the mothership that is launching all this hatred against the West? In order for you to understand that, you have to learn a little bit about an organization called the Muslim Brotherhood, which you have heard something about associated with the Egyptian revolution in the last few months, especially after Christmas. The Muslim Brotherhood is the oldest Islamic terrorist organization in the world, founded in 1928 in Egypt, with 70 offshoot Islamic organizations, including Al-Qaeda and Hamas. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood was founded in 1928. 1928, Israel didn't even exist. America's foreign policy supporting Israel, Israel didn't even exist for us to have a foreign policy. So why did the Muslim Brotherhood launch Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and 70 other Islamic terrorist organizations around the world today? The answer is because they launched a movement of radical Islam to revive the authentic radical Islam of the 7th century and bring back the Islamic Empire, the Islamic Caliphate, which Ataturk eliminated and ended 5 years prior in 1924. The Islamic Empire existed from the 600s until less than 100 years ago. Our knowledge of history is so slim and so small and so almost nil. We do not understand what we're dealing with. We do not understand why our enemy is fighting us. They not only want the elimination of Israel, they want the elimination of our Judeo-Christian value system and of the West in general in order to bring back the Islamic Caliphate and conquer the world. Now, what are they doing and how they are doing it? The Muslim Brotherhood wrote a plan in 1982. It's a 100-year plan for radical Islam to infiltrate and dominate the West and establish an Islamic government on earth. In the counter-terrorism circles, this plan became known as the Project. In the project, they discussed tactics and proposals as to how to infiltrate the West, how to set up non-profit organizations and maintain the appearance of moderation in order to advance radical Islamic agenda in the West. They talk about how to work with like-minded progressive organizations in the West that share a similar goal. They talk about how to get Muslim interns in political offices in all levels in the West to sway opinion. They talk about how to get Muslims on the boards of Republican parties and Democratic parties so they can have a voice in swaying the decision of that party, whether conservative or liberal. They talk about how to get democratically elected Muslims into all levels in the Western government. They began implementing their plan in Europe in 1982. When you look at Europe today, Europe is no longer Europe. Europe has become Eurabia. As I am speaking to you right now, in Europe, in Britain alone, there are 85 Islamic Sharia courts operating parallel to British courts. I am sure if you would have stopped a British man 20 years ago on the streets of London and told him, do you know that 20 years from now, you're going to have a different legal system that's completely opposed to your democratic system, he would have told you, you're crazy. Just as much as a New Yorker would have told you on September 10th, if you would have told him that tomorrow, 19 men with box cutters are going to bring down the World Trade Center, attack the Pentagon, and kill almost 3,000 people, he would have told you, you're out of your mind. That's what's happening in England today. In France alone, there are over 725 no-go zones. These are Islamic zones where the police is even afraid to enter. Europe is no longer the Europe that you knew or your parents knew 20 or 30 years ago. Why are we so concerned in America? Because what's happening in Europe is nothing but a preview as to what's coming to the United States. They wrote the plan for the United States in 1991, the Muslim Brotherhood. Here is the plan. This plan was presented as evidence in the Holy Land Foundation trial in Dallas, Texas, in 2007, the largest ever terrorism trial in the history of the United States against an Islamic charity, where we handed down 180 guilty verdict, and 108, not 180, guilty verdict on terrorism charges. Here is this plan. It says مذكرة تفسيرية للهدف الاستراتيجي العام للجماعة في أمريكا الشمالية, written in 1991. What is so concerning about the plan, this is how to destroy America from within and how to set up an infrastructure in the United States, not a military infrastructure. We know Al-Qaeda is the military arm. We know those organizations want to attack us militarily. But this is the stealth jihad, or the cultural structure to topple down the United States. The most important page of this document is the last page, because it lists 29 front Islamic radical organizations operating in the United States as a front for the Muslim Brotherhood. The top one is ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. Many of you have heard of ISNA because they are now advisors to President Obama about Middle East policy. We not only have the fox watching the hen house, we have the fox inside the hen house talking to the president. And you wonder why the president is so eager to throw Israel under the bus, or already threw Israel under the bus? It is shameful, shameful. The second organization is the Muslim Student Association, the MSA. The Muslim Student Association has more chapters today on American college campuses than the Democrats and the Republican combined. And we wonder where anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism is coming from? While we were asleep, our enemy has been organizing for years. The Muslim Student Association right now has such influence on American college campuses that if you are a pro-Israel speaker or a pro-America speaker, you will have to have security fit for a president to be able to deliver a speech on a college campus because of the Muslim Student Association and how organized they are and how hateful they are. Number 8 on the list is NATE, the North American Islamic Trust. They control the majority of mosques in the United States. Number 22 on the list is the Muslim Association for Palestine, which later morphed into CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a front for Hamas in the United States. They are now the ones who you see on television all the time talking about Middle East affairs. And they are the ones who are invited to the White House to the iftar dinner and being catered to and speak at the Pentagon and at the State Department and everywhere else. This is what is so dangerous right now happening in America. It's not only the military threat that we are worried about. We know they are trying to attack us militarily. But this is the insidious threat that we are worried about. And I'm going to touch on education and how they are attacking us with the education. Part of the Muslim Brotherhood, part of this plan, is how to infiltrate every segment of our society in order to destroy America from within and create a generation that hates America from within. They have a media department, an educational department, a political department, a writers department, Islamic education department, intellectual think tank departments on every level. I'm going to touch now on our universities and how systematically they have tried this strategy to destroy our universities. I call our universities occupied territories, because if you have a child in an American college campus right now, especially if it's an Ivy League university, you know exactly why I call it occupied territories. We have lost our universities. They're brainwashing our children. So how are they brainwashing our children and why? They started, the Saudis, because of the oil wealth, started pumping millions into our universities, setting up Middle East study department and political science departments, setting up Arab professors who are anti-Israel and anti-America to basically brainwash our students. They are using, this is how they're doing it, they are using a loophole in our laws called the Title VI program. The Title VI program was instituted by our government after World War II to educate American students about foreign languages and foreign cultures, especially those who want to get into the CIA and the State Department and diplomatic field so they can be an asset to our country. That's how the Saudis are able to use that program to funnel millions into our universities and set up this Middle East Study Department and Political Science Department. To give you a general idea of the infiltration of our universities, King Fahd of Saudi Arabia donated $20 million to set up a Middle East Study Department at the University of Arkansas. $5 million donated to Berkeley's Middle East Study Department for 2 Saudi sheikhs linked to Al-Qaeda. Harvard received $22.5 million. Georgetown, $28.3 million. $11 million to Cornell, $5 million to MIT, $1.5 million to Texas A&M, $1 million to Princeton. Rutgers received $5 million share endowment, as did Columbia, who tried to lie to conceal the source of the funds. I can go on and on and on and on and on with many universities. From the Ivy League to the community colleges and everything in between. We pump the gas and they pump poison into the hearts and minds of our future generation. And that's why we must become energy independent and stop our dependence on oil. People ask me all the time, Brigitte, why is the media so biased? I mean, my gosh, God forbid you're subjected to watching CNN, let alone CNN International, if God forbid you are on one of these cruises, because that's the only thing you're stuck watching on a cruise, CNN International. You know, you might as well be watching Al Jazeera in English. You know, my husband sits watching television with his shoe in his hand, ready to swing it at the TV set. I'm like, honey, it is so aggravating, but it is everything bad about America, as if nothing is good about America. And people say, why? Why are they so brainwashed like this? And I tell them, why are you surprised? Because for the last 16 years, ever since the Saudis started spending their millions of dollars into our universities, all these students who have been graduating out of our universities being fed a steady diet of hate and resentment against America and Israel are now the news anchors, the news writers, the opinion shapers, the bureau chief, the newsmakers. What else do you expect? They're basically talking the talking points that they were given in college. Except now they are the adults who are driving the agenda in our country and influencing millions of people. Now, it gets even worse. You know how it gets worse? The Muslims got together and they decided, you know what? The strategy worked so well on college campus. Why wait until the kids get to college? Why don't we start with the children in middle school, in 6th and 7th grade? They are so impressionable, they are young, they are ready to learn. Let's start then. So they started with the Islam course in middle schools in 7th grade as a part of the social studies program, where students have to study Islam for 3 weeks, memorize and recite verses from the Quran, go to a mosque on a field trip, adopt Islamic names, and fast for Ramadan if they can to experience what it's like to be a Muslim. You know, when I started talking about this a few years ago, I actually discussed it in detail in my book, They Must Be Stopped, which will be later available here. I see a lot of you taking notes. Save yourself from taking notes, and in the book later you can get it. Just focus on listening. They started with the children. Now, how did Hitler change society? Hitler said, give me your children. I'll change society in 10 years. And that's exactly what the Muslims are doing in the United States. When I started speaking about this, people would say, no way, we have separation of church and state. How could this be happening? So I thought there is nothing like show and tell. So here is the course. Here's the course about Islam. Yes, Pastor. The teacher instruction continues. Dressing as a Muslim and trying to be involved will increase your learning and enjoyment. Finally, trying your best at all tasks will guarantee you an excellent grade and a more enjoyable time. The teacher is already dangling the great carrot in front of the children. Here are the Islamic names the students have to choose from. Abdullah, Khalid, Hassan, Hamza, Ibrahim, Karima, Khadija, Maryam, Noor, etc. Here are some exercises from the class. You know, it's a 3-week course. And I'm going to read you an exercise because I'm going to make a point with this exercise. This exercise is about wisdom cards, these are called. They're teaching the students facts from fiction. And here is a fact card. A jihad is a struggle by Muslims against oppression, invasion, and injustice. Now, this may sound familiar to you, but here is why. Because these are the talking points of Al-Qaeda anytime Al-Qaeda issues a press release saying why they are fighting the Americans in the Middle East. Why? Al-Qaeda is fighting what? Oppression of the Islamic world, invasion of the Islamic world, injustice in the Islamic world. What do the Palestinians say when they're talking about why they're fighting Israel? Why they have jihad against Israel? What's the Palestinian talking point? Have you ever heard Hamas, the latest Hamas press release? We will continue our fight against injustice, oppression, and invasion. Our enemies' talking points are now being taught to our 6th and 7th graders in public schools in the United States. Why are they doing this? Because these students 10 years from now are going to be in college and they're going to go into the workforce and they vote. And what opinion do you think they're going to have about Israel and our soldiers who are fighting in the Middle East coming back home? Well, of course they're going to kill you. You deserve to die because they are just protecting themselves. That's why they have jihad, because they're fighting you because you invaded them and you are not being just to them and you are occupying them. That's what's happening in our society. And here's the kicker. Here is something that the students have to analyze. Remember, public school. This is public school. Here's something that they have to analyze. It is the Islamic salvation prayer, or the Fatiha, which is the prayer that is said in the beginning of every prayer. It is the equivalent to the Christian prayer of the salvation prayer of I accept Jesus Christ into my heart as my Lord and Savior, etc. Praise be to Allah, Lord of creation. Now remember, we cannot sing Christmas songs at public schools. Okay? Can you imagine Pastor Hammond going in there saying praise be to Jesus Christ in public schools? Okay. Praise be to Allah, Lord of creation, the compassionate, the merciful, King of judgment day. You alone we worship and to you alone we pray. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those whom you have favored, which is the Muslims who accepted Islam and Muhammad. Not of those who have incurred your wrath, which is the Jews who refused Muhammad, nor of those who have gone astray, which is the Christians. This is in public school. The students have to analyze this prayer. Can you imagine Pastor Hammond